Rain falls like fractured glass against the asphalt. The night hums with electricity as a truck's headlights carve through the mist. In that split second before chaos, Daniel Holt grips the steering wheel of his old pickup, his thoughts flickering between overdue bills and his daughter asleep at home. A shriek of metal tears through the darkness. An elegant black Mercedes spins across the median, colliding headlong into the guardrail. Instinct replaces fear. Daniel slams the brakes, runs toward the inferno of crumpled steel, and glimpses a woman, unconscious, blood trailing down her temple, trapped behind shattered glass. The world narrows to one purpose: save her. The night will not end the same for either of them. The hospital's white walls hum with antiseptic calm, yet Daniel feels only the echo of fire in his chest. He leans against the vending machine, soaked clothes replaced by borrowed scrubs, staring at the reflection of a man who suddenly stepped into someone else's story. A nurse tells him the woman's name: Victoria Lane. The name rings of wealth and distance, but her life now rests partly in his hands. As he leaves, his phone buzzes with a missed call from his daughter, Emma. He swallows the guilt, unaware that the choice to stop on that dark road will bind him to Victoria in ways he cannot yet see. The morning after feels like someone else's life. At the diner near the highway, Daniel sits across from his best friend, Marcus, trying to make sense of the night. Between sips of burnt coffee, he confesses that he can't forget the look on her face, the way she seemed both fragile and fierce even in chaos. Marcus laughs, says heroes don't get paid, but Daniel's gaze drifts toward the window. Outside, reporters crowd near the crash site. Somewhere beyond them, Victoria Lane wakes up. In a private hospital suite, Victoria Lane opens her eyes to muted light and soft beeping. Her assistant's voice trembles on the phone as she learns the man who saved her disappeared before anyone could thank him. She turns her head toward the window, a city skyline reflecting in her pale eyes. For the first time in years, her schedule means nothing. Gratitude, curiosity, and something deeper begin to take shape in her chest. Back home, Daniel watches his daughter Emma chase their dog through the small backyard, laughter echoing between the fences. The world feels ordinary again, almost. Then his phone buzzes. A private number. A woman's voice, calm yet trembling, says his name: Victoria Lane. The air catches in his chest as she says she'd like to meet him, to thank him properly. The camera lingers on his expression, the quiet before everything changes. Daniel hesitates outside the glass doors of the penthouse tower, a single father in worn jeans among marble and security guards. He almost turns back, but Victoria Lane's voice echoes in memory, grateful, soft, insistent. When the elevator opens, he steps inside and rises above the city he thought he'd never touch. At the top floor, she greets him barefoot, leaning on a cane, framed by light and skyline. No reporters, no entourage, just two survivors bound by one night of fire. Gratitude flickers into something unspoken as she says, "I wanted to see the man who pulled me out of hell." They talk for hours, about accidents and fate, about her company that runs without her, about the daughter he's raising alone since his wife walked away. The conversation moves from polite to personal, from gratitude to shared confession. Victoria sees the weight in Daniel's silence, the quiet strength of someone who's had to keep living for someone else. When she asks about Emma, he smiles for the first time that day. "She's the reason I keep showing up," he says. Victoria realizes she hasn't felt that kind of truth in years. Later that evening, Daniel drives home through the city, headlights gliding across glass towers. His mind swirls with contradictions: gratitude, attraction, disbelief. He imagines telling Emma he met a real-life princess, though Victoria's pain makes her anything but untouchable. At a red light, he glances at the seat beside him, where she'd left a folded envelope. Inside, a note: "You saved my life. Let me help yours." Beneath it, a business card and a phone number. Victoria sits alone in her vast living room, the hum of the city far below. Her doctor warned her recovery would take months, but the ache in her ribs isn't the only thing haunting her. She replays Daniel's face, his honesty, the way he seemed untouched by wealth. For the first time, she wonders if surviving meant being forced to live differently. She opens her laptop, pulls up her charity foundation's board roster, and begins typing a message. I want to meet someone. His name is Daniel Holt. 2 days later, Daniel arrives at a community center with Emma, who runs ahead carrying her sketchbook. He's there for her art class, not for fate. But fate waits anyway. Across the room, dressed simply in jeans and a white blouse, stands Victoria. She smiles when she sees him, a little unsure but sincere. Emma, unaware, tugs on Daniel's sleeve and whispers, "She looks like someone from your stories, Dad." And in that moment, something shifts. Their worlds, once separated by money and circumstance, now quietly overlap. The community center hums with laughter and paint-stained chatter. Victoria's arrival draws quiet glances, but she ignores them, crouching beside Emma's easel with genuine curiosity. Daniel watches as his daughter explains her drawing. 2 people standing in the rain, one saving the other. "That's you," Emma says, pointing at the figure pulling the other from the fire. Victoria smiles softly, glancing at Daniel. "She's an artist," she says. He replies, "She paints truth." Something fragile but alive sparks between them, unspoken, undeniable. After the class, Daniel and Victoria walk through the nearby park, autumn leaves crunching beneath their shoes. The air smells of rain and soil. He tells her about the accident that took his wife's love from their home. Not by death, but by distance. She listens without judgment. In turn, she shares the emptiness behind her fortune. The meetings, the penthouses, the loneliness disguised as success. Their steps sink unconsciously. 2 broken lives finding rhythm in shared silence. That night, Victoria calls him. Her voice trembles slightly. Not from weakness, but from wanting to connect. She tells him she's starting a community outreach project and wants his advice. "You understand real struggle," she says. Daniel hesitates. The idea of stepping into her world feels foreign. But when he hears Emma in the background giggling at the TV, he realizes something. Maybe this isn't about charity. Maybe it's about purpose, he says. Yes. Days later, Daniel steps into the boardroom of the Lane Foundation, feeling out of place amid glass walls and tailored suits. But when Victoria introduces him, the man who reminded me why second chances matter, the room falls silent. He speaks humbly about community rebuilding, about single parents and kids like Emma. For the first time, Victoria doesn't see him as the man who saved her. She sees him as someone who's saving others just by existing as he does. After the meeting, they step onto the rooftop terrace. The city stretches below like a field of stars. Victoria thanks him for speaking so honestly. Daniel looks at her, seeing not the millionaire, but the woman who nearly didn't make it that night. "You've changed," he says. She laughs softly. "You started it." As the wind lifts her hair, they stand inches apart. 2 lives no longer colliding by chance, but aligning by choice. The camera lingers as the city's hum fades beneath the weight of quiet possibility. Weeks pass, and Daniel finds himself drawn deeper into Victoria's orbit. They meet often, discussing the foundation, the future, life. Yet somewhere between meetings and laughter, the line between friendship and something more begins to blur. One evening, Victoria visits the community center to surprise Emma with art supplies. When Daniel walks in, he finds them painting side by side, laughter filling the air. For the first time in years, the sound feels like home. Later that night, Daniel and Victoria sit on a park bench under streetlights, their voices low and unhurried. He admits he's afraid of letting someone close again. She confesses she's tired of being admired but never known. The city hums around them, but for a moment it feels like the world's gone still. She reaches for his hand. He doesn't pull away. In that fragile silence, Healing begins to feel dangerously like love. But when the story of their connection leaks to the press, a leaked photo from the foundation meeting, an exaggerated headline, everything changes. Reporters swarm Daniel's small home, questioning his motives, dragging his past into daylight. Victoria's publicist warns her to distance herself before the board loses faith. She refuses, but the cost begins to show in her eyes. Daniel watches the news that night, realizing that saving her once was easy. Saving what they've built will not be. At her penthouse, Victoria argues with her board, her voice sharp but cracking. They accuse her of compromising the foundation's reputation. She defends Daniel, calls him the soul of their mission. When the room empties, she's left alone, the city lights reflecting her exhaustion. A single tear runs down her cheek. Not for the scandal, but for the fear that maybe she's broken something fragile before it had the chance to become real. Daniel sits with Emma that evening, tucking her into bed as she asks why people are saying mean things. He tells her the truth in the only way he can. That sometimes when you do something good, the world gets confused about. Later, alone on the porch, he looks up at the night sky. The sound of distant thunder rolling. His phone buzzes. A message from Victoria. "I'm not giving up. Are you?" He types back slowly. "Not on you." The storm breaks. The world may doubt them, but neither Daniel nor Victoria can step back now. They meet in secret at the old pier, where the city's lights blur into water. The air is cold, the tide restless. She apologizes for the chaos her world brought into his. He shakes his head. "You didn't bring chaos," he says quietly. "You brought color." She steps closer, their breath visible in the cool air, the sea whispering beneath them. For the first time, she leans in, and he doesn't hesitate. The kiss feels less like a beginning and more like a promise to keep fighting. In the following days, Daniel's story becomes public in full. Not the scandalized version, but the truth. A local journalist, moved by Emma's art exhibition, publishes a heartfelt article about the man who saved a life and changed another. The narrative shifts. Donations flood into the foundation. People begin to see Daniel and Victoria not as controversy, but as courage. Still, fame isn't comfort. It's exposure. They cling to honesty, knowing that only truth can keep them whole. Victoria visits Daniel's home for dinner. Emma insists on setting the table herself, lighting 2 candles that melt unevenly but glow beautifully. Over stew and laughter, the 3 of them feel something rare. Belonging. Victoria listens as Emma tells stories of school, of how her dad fixes everything except burnt toast. Daniel watches them both. Realizing this small, imperfect warmth is what has been. Not money, not rescue. Connection. Dawn, war. Connection. But peace never stays untested. When Victoria's ex-fiancé, a polished executive with a bruised ego, appears at her door, he reminds her of everything she left behind. "You're rebuilding your life with a mechanic?" he sneers. She doesn't answer him. Instead, she steps past him, walks out into the rain, and calls Daniel. "I chose my life when I got out of that car," she says, "and I'm not climbing back in." The phone crackles with silence before Daniel whispers, "Then drive it your way." That night, Daniel waits outside her building in his pickup truck. The rain hasn't stopped, but neither has he. When she steps out, soaked and breathless, she climbs in beside him without a word. They drive through the sleeping city until the road gives way to open countryside. In the quiet, she rests her head against his shoulder. He glances at her, then at the horizon breaking into dawn. 2 survivors of fire and rain, driving not toward an ending, but toward the start of something real. A month later, their lives have blended, 2 worlds stitched together by laughter, trust, and small acts of grace. Daniel fixes Victoria's old piano. She helps Emma with her school project. Yet beneath the calm, pressure bruise. Investors threaten to pull out of Victoria's foundation unless she restores her image. The irony isn't lost on her. She's finally found something true, and now the world wants to take it away. That evening, she looks across the dinner table at Daniel and Emma and wonders if love can survive the noise of other people's opinions. The next day, Victoria faces her board again. Their eyes are cold, their smiles sharp. They demand she step away from public involvement until the scandal fades. She refuses. "If I have to choose between authenticity and approval," she says, "I'll choose authenticity." As she walks out, her heels echo like defiance on marble floors. Outside, she takes a deep breath, trembling but free. Sometimes, survival isn't just escaping wreckage. It's walking away from cages built by fear. Meanwhile, Daniel's old auto shop faces its own storm. A fire caused by faulty wiring burns half the building down overnight. He stands before the wreckage, smoke curling around him, memories of years of struggle turning to ash. But he doesn't crumble. He calls Marcus, then Victoria. "I'll rebuild," he says, voice steady. Victoria listens in silence, realizing this is what strength looks like, not perfection, but persistence. In his loss, she sees her own rebirth mirrored. That night, Victoria drives to his place. She finds him sitting by the remains of the shop, Emma asleep in his arms under a blanket. She kneels beside them, brushing soot from his cheek. "You keep saving things," she whispers. "It's all I know how to do," he answers. They sit together beneath the burnt frame of what was, surrounded by silence that feels oddly sacred. She realizes love isn't about rescuing someone. It's about standing in the ashes with them until light returns. Weeks later, the Foundation's new project launches, not in a skyscraper ballroom, but in the rebuilt community center. Victoria stands beside Daniel as the mayor cuts the ribbon. Reporters capture them together. But this time there's no scandal, only truth. Emma tugs her father's hand, whispering, "Mom would be proud." Daniel nods, eyes glistening. Victoria places her hand over his. Healing at last feels complete, not because they found perfection, but because they built something whole from what was broken. A year later, life looks different but feels more real. The Foundation thrives, rebuilt on honesty and community. Daniel's new auto shop, connected to a training program funded by Victoria, opens beside the community center. Emma runs through the halls like she owns the place, laughter echoing off the walls. Daniel watches her with quiet pride, and Victoria with quiet awe. They've both learned that healing isn't about returning to who you were. It's about discovering who you could become together. Inside the center's art room, Emma unveils a mural she painted with her classmates. A massive image of a man pulling a woman from fire beneath a sky of gold. Daniel and Victoria stare at it, moved beyond words. "That's us," Emma says simply. "But it's not sad anymore." Victoria kneels and hugs her, tears softening her smile. Daniel looks on, the weight of a year lifting like smoke from his shoulders. What began as tragedy now stands immortalized in color and light. That evening, the three of them drive to the ocean, the same place where their lives once collided. The sea is calm now, the sky bruised with twilight. They walk along the sand barefoot, no longer strangers to the waves or to each other. Daniel skips a stone across the water. Victoria laughs as it skips 5 times before sinking. "Guess I'm getting better," he says. "You always were," she replies. The camera lingers on their silhouettes against the horizon. A family born not from blood, but from choice. Later, they sit by a small bonfire on the sand. Emma sleeps between them, wrapped in a blanket. Daniel gazes into the flames, remembering the night he first saw Victoria trapped behind fire and glass. "Funny," he says softly. "Fire took everything from me once. Now it's where I found everything." She reaches for his hand, squeezing gently. The camera moves in close. 2 hands, scarred but steady, clasped in flickering light. Healing complete. As dawn breaks, Victoria wakes first. She watches Daniel and Emma still asleep beside the dying embers. She stands, the wind tugging her hair, eyes on the horizon. When Daniel stirs, she whispers, "You saved me twice. Once from fire, once from myself." He smiles. "And you taught me that saving someone isn't the same as loving them. It's loving them that saves you." They watch the sun rise over the water, a new day glowing ahead. The final frame fades to light. Two souls who found each other not by accident but by grace.